me, my theory was always like, I think the reason why they weren't using Debo and George Kittle so far in the season, because outside of that Giants game, Debo wasn't really making too much of an impact aside from being a threat, right? But I always said that I think it's because it's a little bit conservative in those two, since they're always the most dinged up, that maybe like once it starts getting in mid or later parts of the season, or if it's a game where it's going to be contentious, like this one, that's why we saw McLeod get utilized heavily. It kind of indicates almost that maybe it was going to be a Debo Samuel heavy ran game. That I think unless it's a contentious game or later to the season, that's when he's going to start taking like, taking the armor off, taking the Saran Wrap off, and be like, okay, now go out there and get hurt, because now's the point where I need to win games. I need to get you revved up, because too many times throughout the years, right, we see Debo and George Kittle out early, injured week 4 and out for 4 games, something like that. And it happens like clockwork. I mean, Debo's already hurt again. George Kittle pretty much barely walked into the season healthy. So that's always the case that I would like to see more. But, in terms of the loss, like, it's just, I'd rather just ultimately, like, yes, I've been harping on Purdy was bad because no duh, he's the starting quarterback. You have to emphasize that. Everyone was bad, of course, collectively. Brandon Ayuk had a bad drop on that touchdown pass. I mean, running game, it's just, ultimately, I just rather give more credit to the Browns in that defense, because that's kind of was like the slobber knocker game that I saw. I'm just really surprised that the 49ers defense wasn't as dominant as I thought they were. I mean, they were great. They were fantastic. I just thought they could have done more, which, the refs kind of screwed them over several occasions on that end. But, hey, typically kept the Browns.
The 49ers defense did give up, I think it was 160 yards rushing, which is a lot for them. I think that's the most they've given up this year. And the last 2 years, they've been like top 5 in stopping the run. So I think that was kind of a shock. But you're right. They still held the Browns to 19 points. So you think at that point, if you expect to win on the road, I feel like you expect to score more than 19 points. They
did their job. They did their job.
Yeah.
The defense. I have no complaints about them, even though there was some things to nitpick about.
Yeah. When diagnosing or when assessing who do you think is the most to blame for the loss, you gave a lot of credit to the Browns and said, okay, maybe this is less of a specific subject or a specific part of the 49ers. Maybe it's just that the Browns did so good. But then that kind of leads me to, okay, maybe are you more blaming the O-line for that immense amount of pressure? Or I'm still of the mindset that I feel like I'm blaming Kyle for not adjusting well enough to the losses of Debo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, and adjusting to the pressure. I think there was a lot of play calls that took way too much time for Brock Purdy, and in the face of pressure, you would think that Kyle Shanahan would know to give him some more like quick, easy outs. I know that they were trying to use Ray when Debo got down, and they ended up going away from that because I think upon rewatch, he like ran the wrong way a different time. So he was definitely not prepared. And in his post-game press conferences, Kyle Shanahan kind of alluded to that. Like you could kind of hear he was a little bit angry because he said that there were some guys who didn't study as much as they should have. But he took a little responsibility, saying that it is on him to make sure that they're prepared. But and that's kind of, for me, I feel like I blame Kyle Shanahan because not only was there not good in-game adjustments, but also, okay, if your adjustment is to utilize Ray, well, then it's on you as the head coach to make sure that you're not just coaching up Debo Samuel, but that Ray is engaged in those conversations leading up to the game. And why is Kittle not being involved more? Why can you not, adjust your play calling? I think sometimes Kyle is too scheme dependent. I felt like he was really married to the play action, but the run game wasn't working, and it was like very clear that the Browns were not going to bite on the play action, so they just kept getting to Purdy, which is kind of what I thought would be the problem when facing the Eagles. It was just I didn't think the 49ers would face it yet. But someone we're kind of leaving out when it comes to the loss, because championship teams, even in the face of adversity, if they get into a dogfight, usually they find a way to come back and win. And it, can be an ugly win. And if the 49ers won at the very end, because Brock Purdy, I think you made a case that it wasn't so much Brock Purdy, it was more Ayuk. Put them in a position to win the game at the end. And unfortunately, Jake Moody missed 2 of his field goals in the game. And the story would be a lot different if he made one of those, because it would be a story of adversity and struggle. Like, we would still mention everything that we mentioned, but it'd have this triumphant ending. And unfortunately, it does not look like that. So Jake Moody, how do you feel about him after this game? What is your confidence in him moving forward? And do you blame him for the loss?
Hell yeah, he takes blame. He definitely takes blame. The 49ers spent a 3rd-round pick on this guy to be nails. And my whole thing is, there's too much defending on him about like, well, Kyle Shanahan shouldn't have been conservative. Run the ball one more time, bleed the clock, or gain like 5 more yards. And it's like, yeah, there's no guarantee you're going to gain all this yards. Like, and even then it's like, it's 41 yards. He's not kicking from 55.
That's like an extra point, basically.
Anything with under 50 should be damn near a lock. And I bet you if you pulled the stats of all the kickers in the league so far who have done 45 and less, 50 or less if you want to go, whatever margins we need to go, I'm pretty sure it's going to round out to like 95% of makes. Like, that should have been a lock. And don't give me this, the weather, the wind. He kicked in freaking Michigan. That was one of the credits to him that, oh, he's kicked in Michigan. He's been in the pressure situations, you know, Ohio State, all this, blah, 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 this and that weather. Like, he's a weathered player for the weather, you know? So where was that? That's a perfect example of he was just deer in the headlights. He freaked out. He choked. And that's why you can tell. That's why it's like, to me, it's like, okay, cool. You get it closer. The problem wasn't range. He had leg. That was going to the stands. It shifted wide right. We all saw it. It shifted wide right. It wasn't. So you mean to tell me that 3 yards is going to make it different?
I was the first one was wide left. Like, he overcorrected.
That tells me he's thinking about it. He's overthinking it. That's one thing that, like, my dad's a soccer player all the time. Like, you know, he says like, hey, he's overthinking it way too much because, you know, penalty shots in soccer versus like a field goal. It's like when they shank it, he always says like they're overthinking it.